Wow, Max, a Q&A, how original. Fuck, I'm gonna sneeze. Nah, ain't got nothing in there. There's nothing in there. But yeah, Q&A people, I've wanted to do this for a while because I think it's quite a nice way for you guys to get to know me, get to know how I think. I know we've done gym videos recently, but I think to sit down and actually talk to the camera, I think is a nice way for me to portray my brilliant personality across. So, but we've got a list of 10 questions, so let's get into it. Question number 1, do you call yourself a fitness influencer? I think by the typical definition, absolutely flipping not. I think I'm almost a bit of an anti-influencer because I feel like influencing specifically in the fitness space is kind of quite a modern phenomenon. If you think back to the days of when people like, who is it? We had like Zach Perner, Callum Moga, who else was there? Just like that sort of time. I feel like that was fitness influencing, but just a whole different era. And I think the current fitness influencing we have going on now is nothing like then. Because I think back then it was more about, I used to watch Callum Moga videos before going to the gym and just get absolutely so fired up to lift. I'd think I could look like Callum Moga one day. Obviously I can't because he's pumped a shitload of roids into him. But I think nowadays fitness influencing, it's almost quite annoying because before I met a lot of the fitness influencers that I have, my ex-girlfriend was kind of quite big on social media and I met so many of the people that I followed through her. And not that any of them were my heroes at all, because I don't think I idolize anyone to the point where they're my hero. Kind of meet these people and you suddenly realize that social media is so fake. And especially within the fitness influencing world, I think it's just not something I want to necessarily be tied into. I suppose if it's positive influencing, I don't know what that kind of means, because that's kind of, I suppose every fitness influencer does things for a positive reason. But I don't know. I just think there's a lot of fake stuff that happens, nothing dramatic, but even when I edit my videos, I will edit certain parts to make myself seem more engaging and flamboyant. Maybe not flamboyant. Funny choice of words. You get my point. I just think not everything is as it seems on social media. And I think there's just so much bullshit. And half the people who do the things they do now, they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't have their sponsors or they didn't have their followers. Or how many people do we know that wouldn't be running marathons if they weren't getting paid for it? They weren't getting sent new shoes all the time. It's just, I don't know. I create because I genuinely love it. I'm not like, if, for example, ESN today decided, we can't work with you anymore, you're just a bit of a dickhead, we don't even like you, I'd be like, mate, fair enough, I'm not throwing hands. But I would still create videos. And to be honest, even if I was in a wheelchair, for example, or like something really bad happened to me to the point where I was like, you can't really train, I would still be making some kind of content because I genuinely love it. So depends what you mean. I think it's not as black and white as that, but I just think a lot of the things I've seen in fitness influencing is not directly in line with what I think. Question number 2, why do you do YouTube and social media, Instagram, TikTok, etc.? Pretty much what I stated in the first thing. I think I've always liked the idea. I've been watching YouTube videos since I was yay big. Even down there, I don't know if you guys can see my hand. I used to be obsessed, right, with, this is such a niche YouTube channel, I think nowadays. If anyone actually recognises this YouTube channel, mate, massive props to you. But the Yogscast, I used to love watching their Minecraft videos, and I used to be a proper little gamer back in teens. Ever since I was little, really. I think my dad bought us, me and my brother, like a PlayStation 2, a PSP, you know, those fucking units of a thing. It's like the old school Nintendo Switches. And ever since then, I would then watch the games I'd be playing on YouTube. So then I'd always go, mate, I've got to be on YouTube one day. I've always loved the idea of putting something out there. And I think it's just the love for it. I think for me as well, a big thing in my head is that, like, I really struggle with so much thoughts going on. It's something I'm probably going to talk about a bit more of, but I haven't actually been diagnosed with an ADHD, but it's just so apparent that I've clearly got something that's not typically normal on that front. And I know people get annoyed saying you can't self-diagnose yourself, and it's like, it's a good point. But when I've spoken to people with ADHD and they're listing how they feel, I feel that, but times 10. And the fact that I've done that with so many people, I'm like, you got something going on up there. What was my point? What was the point? Don't lose it. I knew this was happening in this video. That was it. And the content, doing like YouTube, I'm absolutely loving because it just allows me to put how I feel across about certain things. I'd say I'm definitely enjoying YouTube more at the moment just because TikTok, Instagram, it's very surface level. and this is one of the things this is sort of ties back into the first question. The other thing I don't like about fitness influencing is that everything's got to be so short form. Everything's got to be so fucking grab the viewer by the bollocks, make him watch a video with a 40-second hook and $100,000 cash prize. Otherwise he ain't going to watch. And it's like, I ain't trying to do all that. I think specifically YouTube, I'm just loving it because it allows me to get all my thoughts across, all the noise in my head. I like to portray it, and it's quite reassuring that when someone agrees with me or they're like, oh mate, that's a really good point, it's kind of like, for God's sake, I'm not the crazy one here. Does that make sense? Perfect. Question number 3, very heavy on fitness influencing. So what is your opinion on fitness influencers becoming coaches? Great question. I think it's a great question right now. I know loads of great coaches in the space. For example, one of my old coaches who coached me to be, just get shredded for summer a couple of years ago, TM Cycles. Obviously, he's a social media personality. He's been in the game for a long time. He has a great online presence, in my opinion. He's very genuine. And with him, it's what you see is what you get on the tin. So you know that you will get good results from him because he's walked the walk. He's done his bodybuilding. He's done his shows, his Hyroxes, for example. You know that because he's done it, and he's done it with such good credentials, and you can see his journey, you can see his testimonials, you know he's going to be a good coach. My gripe comes with people who suddenly get an influx of followers. They have absolutely no interpersonal skills because they're making videos. A lot of the people want to talk, mate. A lot of the reason people make videos is because they're generally not too good at talking in person. So it's like, this is their way of being confident on camera. But yeah, they'll suddenly get, people will post one diet transformation, whack it on TikTok. They get millions of views. And this is genuinely how it works, by the way. They'll post one thing, or it might be a girl with a cracking ass that suddenly everyone follows. And then this is literally what happens, is that personal training course companies will reach out to these people and say, hey, look, we're going to give you the most basic fucking course for completely free. All you've got to do is whack it on your story and say, this is how I became an online coach. And suddenly they have their qualifications. Suddenly everyone's fucking sucking their dick because they've got a big ass. Doesn't quite make sense, but you get the point. And now they're qualified to coach people, even though they've never done any on-floor gym experience. They don't know how people think on the day. They only base it off what they have done, right? So I've been coaching people in one form or another since I was about 14. So I used to do old school martial arts. I used to teach kids, teach adults way back when. And ever since then, I've been coaching every single type of person. So without sounding very big-headed, I think I'm very experienced in that kind of respect because I know how people think. I know people get nervous in the gym. I know that if they're a mum of 3 kids, they ain't going to want to do a fucking heavy deadlifts all the time. You've got to have that awareness that you only get from actually doing the training. If you're, say, like you're a girl who gets their followers, they get their PT course, that's absolutely fine. I'm not saying this is for everyone. This is just from what I've seen. They then make their plans, their diet stuff for the people, and then you realize that it's so unsuitable to that person just because of their lifestyle, but you wouldn't know that unless you've dealt with that type of person before. So again, none of these are black and white answers, but I just think if you're going to be a social media influencer and you're going to become a coach, you better have your shit together, and you better have, because this is people's lives. This isn't just you whacking that fucking coach label in your Instagram bio and going, right, I'm a coach now, I'm the bollocks, I'm the shit. You can't be using it for a little ego boost. It's like, it's so bad. And I think there's definitely people out there who are extremely qualified in their area, but because they don't have the followers, obviously that's an issue down to them, they're not marketing themselves well, that they obviously get annoyed that these people, just because a girl's got a big ass or some guy's done a massive, really good, for example, body transformation, that suddenly they're now getting all the business. And it's like, well, good for you, but you're not actually that good at this point. Just to finish off this point, I know coaches in the industry. So I've had clients come to me and go, I used to be coached by this person. And I'll be like, right, so how was that? How was the experience there? And I'm talking, it is oblivious. And some of these are really big names, and I'm not trying to drop anyone in it, but some of these are like, let's think British YouTubers, British Instagram people, right? Fitness people. They're the ones that they've got so much going on, right? So when they're then having to make a nutrition plan for someone, it's not their biggest hit of dopamine. So you don't be surprised if you go to these people and you don't get the experience you thought you would, because I've had people come to me, they tell me about the experience they've had with another coach, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, how much are you paying them? Oh, it's madness. But I do think there are good coaches out there. Don't get me wrong. I know again, I know really great coaches, so it's not as black and white. I just think you've got to have your wits about you. And a lot of what I'm telling you, you wouldn't know unless you've met these sorts of people. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm coming across, I'm just trying to slag everyone off. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just saying it from my experience. So when do you take rest days / when do you think it's best for other people to take rest days? Fantastic question. So when it comes to my clients, as an example, or people I coach or just people that are asking, I typically say if you're just lifting weights, for example, I think I'm a big advocate of the statement that your bodies are a lot more capable than you realise. I think people are guilty of, there's people that are guilty of taking too much rest and deloading every month or every 3 weeks, for example. And then there's people that don't do it enough. So you've got to be really, excuse me, just done a radio burp there. Didn't have to say that, Max. You could have just, they wouldn't even know. Anyway. But yeah, a good rule that I kind of try to follow my best now is that I do 3 days in the gym, 1 day off. And it doesn't matter if I'm like, say I'm doing push-pull legs. I don't have to do push-pull legs rest. I might end up doing pull legs, push, pull legs, push, rest. Like, does that make sense? You don't have to base it within a week. So for me, I say every 3 days is quite a good thing for me in the gym, because the worst thing when it comes to fatigue is that you don't really want to reach the point of fatigue. So you want to stay ahead of the curve. Does that make sense? You want to stay just behind that point of getting to fatigue, and then every now and then take a deload. So if you've been training for 8 to 10 weeks of really, really, really hard training, you're following your training split, you're hitting your macros all the time, then supplement a deload, which is where you take like 4 days off completely. But I think in terms of just standard rest days, it's obviously, you kind of know. It's one of those, I can't really give a black and white answer, because obviously people train in different ways, different styles. It's like, if you're like a hybrid athlete, you're doing your runs, your gym, like you should be resting slightly more because you're placing more of a demand on your body. So this is a really nice rule, right? This is how you know when you need a rest day. If you feel like, I genuinely don't want to go to the gym because I'm tired, okay, even though you think I should, that is generally probably when you should take a rest day for the most part. I don't know if that makes sense, okay? So in your heart of hearts when you shouldn't be going to the gym that day, because you just know that, one, you're dreading it when you usually would like it. Your lifts are probably going to be shit. Like, you can just tell, okay? Does that make sense? But the two categoric rules I would follow is every 3 to 4 days, take a rest day. And a good test you can do, I learned this from Dave Trains, is that if you wake up one morning, sort of 2 hours before you go to the gym, whenever it is, clench your fist as fucking hard as you can. Go like that. If you feel like, fucking hell, that's a good fist, I feel strong, it doesn't feel hard to compress, that's a good sign that you've got like carbs in you feel good, because you've got that like spike. But if you clench and it's like, I can't fucking do it, then yeah, probably take a rest day. Question number 5. What is the easiest way to drop body fat as someone who hates the gym? That's a really lovely question, The reason I say that is because I'm going to drop my mother in it here. My mum has tried the gym. She's tried every class. She's tried workout programs for me, other people, everyone else. And she just doesn't like it. And this is one of those things where I kind of had to, it took me quite a long time to realize this, is that some people just don't like going to the gym. Like, no matter how much I love it, no matter how much it's changed my life, it's easy for gym addicts and people who love the gym. It's hard to see outside of our own perspective, of our reality. And you're like, how the fuck do you not like gym? But then it's like people who drink, it's like, how the fuck do you not like a drink? It's like, that is what you know. That is your truth, that you like the gym. So you have to be quite like introspective and realize, just because I like it, that doesn't mean everyone else is going to love it as well. So my advice to someone who wants to drop body fat and doesn't like the gym, okay, you need to find something that is you just enjoy, okay, and it can just be as simple as walking, okay. You need to work out generally how much food you need to eat. A good rule to follow is, if you don't want to do the whole calorie tracking thing, is imagine you had a plate of food, half of it, make that veggies, a quarter carbs, and a quarter protein, okay. 3 of those a day, 1 snack, and I can guarantee whatever size you are, no matter how overweight you are, that will drop your body fat. If you can combine that with increased output through steps and, I don't know, fucking tennis or swimming or some shit, you will be good to go. You don't have to go to the gym to lose body fat. It's just an accessory to that, if that makes sense. It's like, that's why people in a coma, if they don't eat, obviously, in a coma, obviously you're not expending much energy, you're going to drop body fat, because that's just how the human body works. So if I was you, the plate rule that I've just said, get 8 to 10,000 steps a day, and yeah, just try and be active throughout your day. Okay, and that is it. That is the bottom line, really. Eat less, move more. What is your fitness influencer hot take? This might wind some people up. I cannot get behind the idea, and I don't get. This is the thing. This is where it becomes I become quite anti-influencer for myself. I don't get people who, if you working with 3 clothing brands as a fitness influencer, and you're telling me that that isn't a money grab. It's like, it has to be, right? If you're doing it to get your bag, then mate, go for it. But I don't think you can lie and say, you know, each time you promote a fucking pair of gym shorts or whatever, you go, these are my favourite shorts, but then these are also my favourite shorts just because it's Black Friday over here or there's a deal here. Like, I think you have to be honest with yourself, and I don't know how you can promote that many fucking brands' clothing. Like, I sometimes struggle to promote one supplement brand. If I had 3 clothing brands on top of that, I'd lose the plot. You know, maybe that's just down to some shitty organisation, but yeah, I think 2 clothing brands is fine, but I think if you're doing 3, I just think you can't love that. Like, you can't you can't get excited to promote that product. You can't then go like, I don't know. I think that's it for me as a hot take. I just don't get the promoting 3 brands at once. Like, influencers have 3, this is the whole other thing. 3 clothing brands, 1 electrolyte company, another supplement brand, another training app brand. I'm like, you are just a walking advert. And that is a big part of like fitness influencing. Some people just are like that. But I think if you're trying to be genuine and authentic, you can't work with 3 clothing brands. I don't know. That's just me. That's my hot take. I think stick with your core, you know, 1 or 2 brands if you want to, and then, yeah, capitalize on that, get people loving that, and yeah, I just think it makes you come across a lot more genuine and not like you're trying to grab everyone's money all the time. But then that's what influencing is to an extent. It's kind of like you're trying to convince people to do these things. Question number 7, what is your favorite game of all time? That's a banger of a question. I actually don't think I could, or I'm going to put it to my top. If we're going multiplayer games, then Black Ops 3, Prime Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and I'm just trying to think what I've had the best memories on. I think GTA 5, Black Ops 3, were they released in the same kind of time? No, I don't think they were. Yeah, I'd say those 2 are my favourite multiplayer games. Special shout out to Call of Duty Ghosts, because that is such an underrated piece of Call of Duty. Like, that game for me is when that was a good game. But I think if we're talking, oh shit, man, I think my top 3 single player games, and this you're gonna think, fucking hell, Max, that is a bit wet. I've actually got a tattoo there. It's kind of a bit shit now. I don't know if you know this, but that is based on Ghost of Tsushima, which is my favourite single player game of all time. Ghost of Tsushima, that is the sickest game. Second place would be Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and third would be Hitman Absolution. That was on PlayStation. What was that on? Was that Xbox One or Hitman Absolution? I think it was Xbox 360 I played on. But yeah, they're my top 3 games. I'd be interested to know. And obviously, like Minecraft. Everyone loves Minecraft. Let's be honest. But what to do when progress stalls in the gym with your physique? So assuming you're, well, I suppose it could only be about fat loss or muscle gain. If you have to think about what constitutes muscle gain, like what is going to encourage muscle gain, what's going to encourage fat loss. So let's take fat loss, for example. You've got your total daily energy expenditure. So that is everything you do in a day. That's your breathing, that's your moving around, that's your training, that's sorting kids out, etc. That's all of your physical activity within the day. Speech impediment, it's getting there. You've got your nutrition and your training, right? So and your recovery. So you've got like those 4 pillars, right? Generally, if your progress is stagnated, it's that either you're not doing one or some of these things, or they've stayed the same for too long. Obviously, recovery, if that's good all the time, then we can't change that. That's really good. But typically speaking, you either need to up your training intensity slightly, you need to move a little bit more, or eat a little bit less. Okay, so your body's quite a clever. Oh, your bodies are amazing, aren't they? They can kind of, everything's about longevity, okay? So when we put ourselves in a state of losing body fat, it's not actually realistically healthy and optimal for our bodies if we're taking it quite far. So if you've been dropping body fat for quite a while, I would personally suggest a deload week or a refeed, okay? So if you're someone that's been training for, say, 8 to 10 weeks, your body, the stimulus you need to place on it, whether it's, you know, more accurate calorie tracking, whether it's training harder, whether it's moving a bit more, it can only go so far before your body's like, nah, mate, I can't be arsed. That's when you burn out, you get ill. It's just not good for your body. So this is kind of goes back to the point of taking rest days, is that when you get to that point where you're like, I'm really not making progress, I would just suggest taking 5 days off of the gym. Okay, 5 days off. Bump your food up a little bit, just because you want to give your body, you need that kind of metabolic reset for your body to then propel you into like another secondary or third stage of fat loss. Does that make sense? So you can't just do the same thing forever and expect it to work. You have to take a step back, then jump back in. Or, you know, it's like if you were learning guitar, as I am at the moment, you wouldn't just practice days on end every single day for months and months and months, because you probably burn out. Your brain just wouldn't be able to handle it. Whereas if you do a little bit for, like, say you go quite intense for a week, then you take your weekend off learning it, go back in, you get that mental refresh. And it's the same thing with dieting. So for fat loss, take diet breaks, take time off the gym every now and then. I'd say every 10 weeks is quite a good time frame. And in terms of muscle gain, you need to just play around with the intensity of your training. Okay, so if you've been following the same training plan for weeks and months on end, you're not adding any kind of intensity factors like drop sets, pause sets, supersets. Like if you're just doing the same shit you've been doing for months on end, your body is used to that stimulus, right? You'll still notice some progress, but the rate will be far slower. And usually people, they stagnate in a muscle gain phase because they're just bored of the movements, right? So don't be afraid to change up your plan every, again, 8 to 10 weeks. That's kind of like the nice number to stick with, okay? So yeah, if you're trying to gain muscle, mix up your plan every now and then. Introduce diet breaks. So if you've been trying to gain size for ages and you're really, really struggling, don't be afraid to take, you know, do like a 2-week mini cut, for example. Obviously, this is quite a generalized thing. I would make a whole video on this at some point. But yeah, take a diet break, change your training plan, add some new ways to intensify your workouts. And yeah, I think that's generally the advice I'd give on that. Question number 9, tips for getting into hybrid training. That's a great question. So hybrid training, I'm assuming you're talking about running and lifting. That is a method where I used to be a proper little hybrid training fellow, as they say. I used to love running. I do like running, it's just right now it's on my focus. And I love lifting. So just because we think hybrid training, don't just think like loads of volume, like 5 runs a week on top of weight training, right? So usually what people do when they transfer from like lifting to hybrid training, being running and lifting, is that they'll take their old like bodybuilding split or their own weight training split that they've always been on, and then they'll supplement that, or like they'll add to that with 3 runs. And it's like, that is, you might just think it's 3 runs, but that is a lot of volume for your body to actually recover from, right? You're not Superman, right? So most people, if you're trying to transition from lifting into hybrid training, is that you need to juggle your volume. So I would start with perhaps either like start with 5 sessions, right? So 5 or 6. So whether it's 4 weight sessions, 2 runs, or 3 weights, 3 runs, like don't think that you can do your strength training how you have been for years with loads of runs on top of that. Obviously fueling is a big thing you're going to have, especially on your double training days. This is a really good tip, that if you're doing a running and a lifting day, I would typically have my maintenance calories for what they would be if I was just trying to maintain my weight and lifting. I would then work out how many calories I've burned from a run, and I'd add on 80% of that. Okay, so if I didn't want to really gain weight, but I wanted to be fueling for my runs and my lifts, I would work out maintenance calories as if I was lifting, and then take 80% of the calories I burned in whatever run I was doing that day and just add that onto my daily calorie amount. Last question of the video. What's overrated in the fitness industry right now? You guessed it, reformer Pilates. People get so pissed off with me saying that. I am an advocate for getting people moving. I think everyone would benefit from a bit more exercise, a bit more, you know, doing things that's like harder, I suppose. Yeah. I think reformer Pilates is really, really good for, like, the stimulus it gives you is really, really good for, I think, people who you know, might have had injuries in the past and they're trying to rehab an injury through stability exercises, or perhaps you're like an older lady that can't quite do barbell back squats, for example, or bloke. Let's keep it all inclusive. I think if you're trying to do reformer Pilates to get in unbelievable shape, you know, that Mykonos summer shred physique that I know a lot of females are trying to do, I just don't think, right, that reformer Pilates is your best method, because anything reformer Pilates can do, weights will generally do better, okay? And we obviously know that to build muscle, to drop body fat, there needs to be a level of intensity. So to build muscle, you have to physically break it down. You have to train it to or close to failure, and to the point where you're then eating enough to help it recover, right? If you're doing like, I don't know what the typical moves are called in reformer Pilates, but let's say you're doing like the one where you lunge and the fucking seat moves back, kind of looks like a transformer. If you're doing that and, you know, you're holding 2 kilo dumbbells, chances are there's going to be burn. There's going to be that burning feeling because there's lactic acid buildup. But that does not constitute like a big change. That doesn't constitute enough of a stimulus for your muscle to grow. So whereas if you were doing some squats, if you're doing some cable rows, they are enough to stimulate your body into actually growing. Whereas reformer Pilates just doesn't quite do that. But what I will say is for things like core strength, core endurance, it's probably quite good. This is why I'm saying it's like, depends what your goals are. If you're trying to do reformer Pilates to build a sick physique, then, you know, I just think there's far better methods out there. But hey, if you love it and you genuinely really like it and you're eating well, then I'm sure you will get good results. I just don't think it's the most effective way on that front. I don't know if you guys can see my rosy cheeks. It's flipping boiling in this room. That's mad. But people, that is the end of the video. I know I have a tendency to waffle a little bit. I do apologise. I know I'm still kind of getting used to just being able to talk for this long, and I sometimes stumble on my words. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I do want to do more of these. So if you have any other questions you want to answer, please put them in the comments below. And as always, as I'm trying to grow this page as best I can, any support is appreciated. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.